All right, everyone, welcome back to the NPU live streaming event series for the year of 2026. I'm your host, Jason B. Allen, the National Director of Partnerships for the National Parents Union. Now, we go by NPU. We're known as the modern American voice of families across this country, doing the great work of creating and implementing positive policies that impact, you guessed it, our kids and families. Now, we are going live with StreamYard and YouTube. I know a lot of our members are used to us being on Facebook, but we're trying out something different. So excited to see everyone who is connected through StreamYard and the NPU YouTube channel. Now, in all fairness, I have to say, all year since January, I've been telling the members and the partners to make sure you subscribe to our NPU channel because you do not want to miss our live conversations. Now, I will be remiss to tell you that this live event is in celebration of a lot of amazing holidays in the month of June. We are focusing in on fathers, fatherhood, and definitely wanting to celebrate the amazing work of some of the partners and leaders who will be speaking to us on this evening. Now, I want to give us an update on the READ Act, focusing in on literacy after 4 years of mobilizing parents and family leaders across the country. Our federal legislation bill, the READ Act, has been introduced. Now, we all know that good bills don't pass themselves. We must take action. And so on tonight, I'm asking you all to stand with us as we continue to call the Senate Education Committee. The number is 202-224-6770. Now, you also can call 202-224-0767. And you may be saying, well, why am I asking this? Well, one, I've been asking all year. And two, we were in DC just recently at the Senate Education Committee. And listen, I have to say, especially for a lot of the dads who are watching, the way that we are putting money into our government and they are having these committee meetings, it will remind you of a reality TV show. And I know that kind of sounds ironic with our current leadership of the country. But to stay on script, we want to make sure that you all call and ask them to support the READ Act. We need this to happen. It is a bipartisan bill and it makes sense. So we want legislation that makes sense. Now, two more things, and then I'm bringing on one of our first special guests. We have another call to action centering special education. Now, we have one of our guests who is going to talk about the work that dads are doing to advocate around special education. But the administration is moving special education out of the Department of Education. Now, I'm going off script. I'm sorry. I'm going to say it. I'm a special education teacher by trade. So for me, when I think about the 7 million students who rely on IDEA, it's heartbreaking, to be honest. People really need to understand the severity of the law that guarantees that these students who may have disabilities, some intellectual, some physical, some mental, to access IEPs, classroom accommodations, transition services, and special trained educators, such as myself, to help them make sure that they meet their pathway to success. So, of course, we want you to continue to call and make sure that you advocate against cuts to the Office of Civil Rights that also protects our children. So call the Capitol Switchboard. For those who did not know, yes, the Capitol Switchboard is a thing. It is still working. They do answer. The number is 202-224-3121. Make sure you get connected. Now, NPU is doing something really cool. We have some dads who are going to be talking about AI and technology. And speaking of that, mykidmydata.org. Okay, it's really cool. It's a cool tool. I can't get into it because I have to follow the script and I want to make sure that I don't get in trouble. But visit mykidmydata.org. It has a lot of cool information. AI is already in our children's schools. So let's make sure that our parents are connected to the conversation. And they said, please stop calling us out. We're following this script. Okay, I'm sorry, guys. I just want to make sure that we're all connected. We have a great time. Super excited about the conversation this evening. 3 more things. Go to nationalparentsunion.org. Make sure you join our network. Subscribe to the source that breaks down all of this information in a very parent-friendly way. I also would love for you to join the Kids First Caucus or the Parent Power Collective. So get connected to NPU, all of the great things. Now, all of the announcements are out of the way. We have some phenomenal fathers, brothers who are going to be on this evening. I want to open up this conversation, though, with a very important area. You know, a lot of times we don't connect the dots with early childhood education, early literacy, family literacy to fatherhood. But we have a brother who is getting ready to come on, who is representing one of our phenomenal partners, and he is going to speak to the urgency of early childhood education and fatherhood. So, brother Rodney Washington is on. Yes, we have him. Rodney, if you could tell the people who you are, organization you're representing,
Sure.
where you're from before we get into our conversation.
Sure. I'm Rodney Washington. I serve as one of the co-investigators with the National African American Child and Family Research Center at Morehouse School of Medicine. I'm also visiting professor of education, early childhood at Jackson State University in Jackson, Mississippi. And I'm also a dad and a granddad, so I have to throw that plug in as well.
Okay, now major shout out. I did a top 5 today on some of our partners. Lily's Foundation supports grandparents and caretakers raising school age children. I have to say that grandfathers and male caretakers are in the increased numbers of those helping to raise children. And I had to highlight that when you said you were a
Yes.
granddad. So that was a perfect segue. Now, Rodney, I don't have you for a long time. And so I
Yeah.
do have to definitely follow the script. Very first question that I do want to ask you to address with those viewing this live on this evening. Why is it so important for us to connect the dots with fatherhood and early childhood education?
Yeah, because I mean, when you think about it, there's so much data out there that speaks to the importance of fatherhood engagement. We know that dads are more likely to push for emotional regulation. They push for increased physical activity. They also move for more independent functioning. And so when you look at the benefit on social emotional behavior and over the long term academic progress and how young people actually relate to their peers, fathers play a pivotal role in that. And there's lots of studies out there that cite that. And so we have to think about early childhood education, and particularly in the first 5 years, the critical first three, but absolutely the first five. We do see the benefits of fathers, whether engagement. And I want to throw out an important thing: that engagement is highly significant, whether they are residential fathers or out of the home. And so the impact is the same in terms of the benefit to the child.
I like that you mentioned whether they are in or out of the home. NPU, we represent modern American families and stressing, modern co-parent.
I think I think I lost your sound. So I'm sorry, brother. Hey, I didn't get any of that. Think we lost sound. I think we lost sound. Can you hear me? Okay. Brother Jason, I didn't get any of that, and I apologize. Looks like we lost sound for a second. Well, that's just my luck.
All right, everyone. I think that was a technical glitch. So, Rodney, we could hear you at one point in time, but let's start that back over and just kind of make it connect again. So, here's what we want to do: go over some resources that we can share with people in regards to connecting dads to early childhood development.
Yeah, so there's a couple of documents out there. Head Start has a framework out there for fatherhood engagement from birth to five. There's also a paper, a brief that the National African American Child and Family Research Center has done on social characteristics of African American fathers connected to families receiving TANF benefits. We also there are several frameworks that are out there, but what I want to really emphasize is that there are frameworks out there, but it's the approach. I think we have to be more intentional about the approach. I hear in research all the time that there are hard to reach populations. I don't subscribe to that. I think that it is our approach and the intentionality around how we make welcoming environments for fathers. I think we're working on a framework in Mississippi right now on humanizing factors with Dr. Carla McCullough. And we believe that when fathers feel seen and valued, the engagement is increased. And so I think that it is up to us to create methodology and hear from dads on what how they would like to be engaged and be more intentional about the process. I think your audio has gone out again. Your audio is still not there, Jason. No. Just the beauty of live streaming. That's all. Okay.
Fellas, can y'all hear me?
We can hear you, Curtis. Can y'all hear me?
Hello, hello.
Oh yeah, we all here.
We're all here.
They brought in the cavalry.
I don't know, Jason. Y'all done messed up now, man.
We're about to run this ourselves now.
Takeover. The great takeover.
We can't hear you, Jason.
Jason, we go. Oh, yeah. Good evening, everyone. Welcome. Really excited to be part of the panel. My name is Kirby Rabelais. I'm the founder of Got Fortitude. Got Fortitude is essentially my story of turning pain into purpose. My son Harley was diagnosed with a rare genetic disorder, early COVID, and because of that, in the lack of father groups and resources for specific fathers raising neurodivergent children, I wanted to really reset the market, if you will, like a better term, and helping support with a mission-based community that is nonprofit, that is a no judgment zone, and getting fathers from raising neurodivergent children of all diagnoses to come into our community to seek brotherhood, support, opportunity, tribal knowledge, and so forth. And at the end of the day, really help become the best expression of yourself, irrespective of how things are at home. So excited to be here on this panel with these great fathers and gentlemen. And I'll pass it over to who's next, Kunal.
All right. Thank you, Kirby. Hi, everyone. My name is Kunal Dalal. I am a former teacher, former principal, and a father of, I'll keep going, a father of two wonderful children, a 6-year-old boy and a 2-year-old girl. And I was laid off right at the beginning of COVID, as many of us were, and I was a new father with my new child, and I felt the isolation that any stay-at-home parent would feel, and especially the sort of the network of fathers being fairly thin around stay-at-home fatherhood. And I was excited to do it, and I was excited to meet large communities of other stay-at-home fathers. I was living in Oakland, California at the time, and that never materialized because of COVID. And in that time, I started to really explore sort of my own traumas, if you will, growing up as in my family and in my own communities that I grew up in. And then AI became public not too much later, and I all of a sudden found a very humanizing aspect of parenthood that I could co-discover alongside this new crazy technology called artificial intelligence that was out in the world. And I'd worked with AI before in a more technical way, but this was the first time it came out into the world. And so over the course of the last 3 years, I've published 3 editions of my book called The AI Parent. My most recent one was October of last year, which was titled Our Incredible Fragile Moment, which is really trying to capture this incredible moment we have, but also the fragility of this moment if we don't embrace it for what it is, and we allow those who are more well-resourced and who are really trying to centralize power around AI and political power and technological power, if we allow that to go and become the story of AI, then that becomes just sort of social media 2.0 and kind of controlling the narrative around not just AI, but just how our children grow up. And so that's when I started AI Parentology, aiparentology.com. And part of that is not just us as parents in this AI moment, but also that we are parenting AI into this world right now. AI as a public thing is just 3 years old. It's a little baby. And how we parent it into this world is going to make all the difference in what it is in this world. And it can be the things that big tech would want it to be, which centralized control, we all are feudal users, or it can turn into something that we own in our home, in the sacred space between children and parent. And that's the work I do. I'm very glad to be here. And I'm going to go and hand it off next to Mohan. Let's go, Mohan.
Let's do this thing. There's like this big moment when like Jason's like about to speak and you think something epic's about to happen and you know it's coming, but like unfortunately the mic is not cooperating. But we're gonna figure it out, man. I'm Mohan Sivaloganathan. Great to be able to connect with y'all. I am the dad of a 7-year-old who's shockingly good at Minecraft and Lego building, and is really into like Ronaldo and Messi right now, which is super dope. And of course the Knicks, because our mayor is Muslim, and y'all can fill in the rest. And with all of that, I am the co-founder of Dads for All. We are a national organization that fosters community and service through fatherhood. We started this journey a couple of years ago when, there was that moment, if y'all remember summer of 24, when there was this sudden surge of excitement around the election and civic engagement. And for me and my co-founders, we looked around in these spaces that we've been in for a long time. I used to lead a national education organization. I've been in civic engagement space for a minute. It's like every group is represented, right? Like I could find Asian Americans. I could find fellow Penn State graduates. You could find the moms. You can find all these groups, but you can't find dads, which is a really strange thing. And it's not that people weren't talking about men. People were talking about men, but like everything that's wrong with us, right? Everything that's wrong with men, everything that's wrong with boys. But for so many of us, being a dad, like that's our proudest identity. Like that is where we're at our most expressive, our most connected, our most purposeful, our most expansive. And so why wouldn't we bottle that up? And at Dads for All, we call that our big dad energy. Why wouldn't we take that big dad energy and channel it into our communities, channel it into our neighborhoods through service? And by volunteering, by building community of dads, by helping dads to feel more affirmed. And we're not just bringing you into the space because of your work title or because your wife said so, but because we think that you're truly dope and we want to celebrate that. And we believe that when we celebrate that and we forge that sense of allyship, that there will be greater inspiration and energy to want to give back locally. And we have now seen that happen. It's proven to be true all across the country. We've got chapters in California and Virginia, where I'm at, Ohio, Pennsylvania. We've had folks playing a role in everything from volunteering with park cleanups to helping to drive bipartisan legislation for paid family leave in Pennsylvania and Ohio. So yeah, it's an honor to be a part of this work, what feels like a true movement, along with the brothers here in this conversation, and excited for what's ahead.
Mic check 1 2.
You back?
StreamYard is punishing me for not following the script, and it told me to say mic check 1 2. It's so funny. Let me follow the script seriously. I'm scared.
You're here. You're here. We're all here, man. We're all here.
All right. So everybody, thank you. I was reading the comments. People are like, Jason normally like navigates all of the tech issues, and it was StreamYard would not let me come off of mute until I follow the script. Okay. So let me follow the script, everyone. We have an amazing panel. Again, thank you guys for being connected to the conversation. You guys are doing a great job of the introductions. I think we heard from everyone except for...
We got Brett and Curtis.
Brett and Curtis. Okay, so Brett, Curtis, let's hear from you guys.
Curtis, take it away.
Curtis Valentine. I'm the president of the Male Educator Network and Policy Institute. It's the first of its kind pre-professional organization for men in education, but also policy research think tank, where we're going deep on how to recruit and retain men in education. I come from the background of education, from a middle school teacher, member of my board of education in Maryland for 10 years, where I was making policy and really driving the importance of parental engagement, particularly fathers and men in education. As a member of my school board, I started something called the Fatherhood Forum to really increase the number of men in education, but also male educators originally. So pivoted and used that to create the Real Men Teach movement that I created to increase the number of male educators. And both my work with fathers and with male educators all come back to the same mission, which is to put more positive role models and men in front of young boys. And so the work that I'm doing is really driving and increasing dramatically the number of men in education, but also looking at the impact that potentially fathers and grandfathers and father figures can play in us increasing the number of male educators. I love the work that NPU is doing to invite fathers into the school building and onto school buses, and even as crossing guards, introduce them to the school as a potential supporter, but maybe pivot and transition into the classroom. And so just so excited to be here and support this work and looking forward to the conversation. Thank you.
Wow, very tough room to follow. A lot of really great role models here that inspire me. My name is Brett Rower, based out of New York. Spent 16 years in public ed as a teacher, college counselor, assistant principal, and principal, all in the 5 boroughs in the DOE. Transitioned during COVID. I was a pandemic principal. We had our second child, and really reflected a lot on just leading through that crisis, and even prior to that, just not being a very present parent or partner, and realizing I was just missing out on a lot of peak moments, like the reason you become a parent. And it really caused me to reflect inward and realize like I had to be the change. Since that time, in the past 6 years, my son is neurodivergent. He has ADHD. In the process of diagnosing him, I realized I also have that. And it's just really been a long journey. And it's been a transformational journey for me and my family. And I have worked with districts and schools and communities and families around the country to show them how you can use AI to really be a more present parent, and really show them many of the free tools they have access to right on their phones, and how to do it safely, ethically, and really use AI before and after those peak moments to make them even more rich, engaging, and long lasting. And just really honored to be here tonight and hopefully share some of that wisdom with you all.
I'm looking forward to the conversation. Now, sticking to the script, I'm gonna still mess with StreamYard on this. What's one thing you love about fatherhood? We definitely want to hear from those who are viewing this live, but also from our panel. And I'm going to go in the order of the screen because that's what it's prompting me to do. Kunal, we'll hear from you first, then Brett, then Mohan, then Kirby, then Curtis.
Yeah, I think the thing about fatherhood, I mean, there's so many things, right, of course, but I think what really hit me early in fatherhood was at first I thought it was going to be about raising my child, and I realized it's as much about sort of re-raising myself as it was raising my child. And in a lot of ways, I realized that so much of what felt like potentially maybe like missed opportunities and all of that, or maybe not opportunities, that feels like I'm forcing my kid to do things he doesn't want to do, but like but it's this sense of who I was growing up, had a lot of trauma, as many of us who grow up have, and feeling like in many ways I had a second chance with that, raising my children. And that, to me, beyond all other things, really felt like I have a chance to raise my own self again. And that's been the most powerful thing for me, being a father.
Yeah, well said, Kunal. I really focus on these things I call peak moments. And when I give these keynotes now, I make the audience do this, especially recently I spoke to a group of valedictorians and salutatorians and their parents and their leadership. And I make everyone do this protocol where I say, make eye contact with parent, loved one, someone who inspires you, and really recognize that this is a peak moment. And so when I do it with my own children now, who are 5 and 8, sometimes they roll their eyes, but sometimes now they start by going, you know what this is? And I go, what? They go, a peak moment. I go, why? They're like, because we're happy, we're healthy together, and we're safe. And it made me realize that those moments are happening, but a lot of people aren't present for them and they're not able to recognize them. And so I really try to work on how do we make that part of our daily life, right? We can show gratitude in a number of ways, but those moments, when you feel that goosebump moment, I want my kids to remember that happened, right? We don't know how many of those we are promised in life. And that, to me, is what I'm really finding the most joy in parenthood. Once I realize, like, you can redo, you don't have to follow the playbook you were raised with. You can go off script and you can embrace change and you can give things to your children that you might not have had. And that's something I definitely didn't have, that presence and appreciation for those moments. And so that's the thing I love most about being a father right now.
I mean, there's a lot that resonates here. So my mother-in-law is a big Steph Curry fan. And a few years ago, she had like this health thing that she was able to turn the corner on. And so we said, all right, let's celebrate. We're going to take you to a Warriors game. So we went to a Warriors game, and this was when my son was 3 months old. And so like, I thought it was a brilliant idea. I'm going to take him to a game. And like, I grew up on basketball. That was like this deep connection I had with my dad, and we're going to have that too. And as early as 3 months, I had him in the carrier. And yeah, bringing him into an arena with all the lights and sound is a terrible idea. I don't recommend it. Not at that age. And so I was like, all right, y'all watch the game. I was there with my mother-in-law, father-in-law, my wife. Y'all watch the game. I'll go out with my son. And so I went into like that kind of like corridor in between like the arena where the game was happening, and then like where the concessions are. And what was so dope was like there was man after man, dad after dad, who who would stop and come and talk to me when I was in that hallway and talk about their own experience as a dad, and like how they had moments like what I was experiencing at that time. They would just share just random wisdom that also had nothing to do with that moment and experience. But it was like, it was one of many moments that told me like I'm a part of something bigger now. I'm a part of like this village of fathers, yes, and I'm a part of this village of fathers that I believe are completely reimagining what it means to be a dad. And just what a privilege it is to be in this moment where we can be conscious enough to, like Kunal said, work on ourselves, like work with our community, work with our peers, and really do this dad thing differently. It's just incredible, and yeah, it's one of my favorite things.
Yeah, I think for me, you know, when you think about the one thing I love about fatherhood, raising a neurodivergent child and also a typically developing child, if you will, is that kind of, you know, echoing some of the fathers already, is that I think that our children are definitely our teachers, especially when you broke up, when you grow up maybe in a potentially, you know, a divorced home or broken home like I did myself. You don't know what that really is or what that looks like. So when you raise a neurodivergent child specifically, we celebrate, we call them inch stones. And when Harley was first going into copious amounts of therapy and so forth and making progress, one of his first therapists ever said, hey guys, don't celebrate the milestones, celebrate every inch stone. And so every inch stone is like the Super Bowl, you know, and it's like the Knicks winning the championship, you know. So we celebrate them. We love those moments. We try to categorize them right. Hopefully, you know, capture those, you know, on video, right, and making sure that we're present as possible for all those moments, and also celebrating my typical developing son as well, all of his milestones as he comes along. And I love also about that is that he is going to grow up with a very empathetic heart, because of Harley, and also for other children with different types of disabilities as well. So I think the love between them, the brotherhood they have, and being able to celebrate Harley even just smiling or laughing in a moment, I feel like that is, you know, that's everything to us and me. So small things matter the most, right? And put gratitude around that and warms your heart. And no matter what type of day you have, a smile or a laugh from Harley or something small, you know, him enjoying the sunset, it means everything.
Thank you. I think there are two sort of instances. The first is I love seeing my children do things that make them come alive. So my son is a great student, but he really puts a lot of time into being a really superior basketball player. And I would go to his games. I would sit sort of like a fan. I just like love watching him do something that he loves to do, and to be a fan and to see him operate in sort of, you know, I call it a flow state where, you know, they're just locked in. Same thing with my daughter. She's someone who, like myself, likes to be in her room. Doors open, but she's inviting me. She likes to be in her room. It's just a lot of things she likes to do. She likes to like do nails and a lot of arts and crafts and things. And sometimes I just go in the room, I just watch her. She's like, Dad, what's up? I just want to see you do the thing you love to do in real time. Because it makes me happy to see them operate independently. The other thing I love about being a father is when I hear people talk about my children when they're not around me. And so someone says, hey, Kurt, I met your son, or I met your daughter, and then fill in the blank. It's always, you know, a compliment about something they've said or how they carried themselves, how they showed up for other people. And so it's interesting. One of the best parts of being a father is when I'm not around, but how they show up around other people. I think, you know, Father's Day just left, and us fathers, we get, you know, it's always interesting about like, what does a father want for Father's Day? For me, you know, just to be able to watch them operate in their fullness, but also to see other people operate that way as well, is really all I really need, because it's a testament to my, you know, how good a father I am, but more importantly, how they're going to be able to thrive once I'm long gone.
Thank you guys for answering that very first question to kick off this conversation. You're going to hear me, say read act during this conversation. That's a hint to the backstage crew to let them know I'm going off script, so that the teleprompter won't silence me again when I need to make some changes in the live program. Thank God for technology, though. It is phenomenal. Now, with that being said, make sure you call your senators about the READ Act. Here's what I want to do. Very important question to ask all of the panelists, and I want to divide this in two areas. This question is centering how are fathers and men showing up in education and also in AI. And so I'm going to do the reverse of the order, and I want to start, let's pass the mic back to Curtis, and then we'll go to Mohan Kirby, and then we'll end out with Brett and Kanal on how are men and fathers showing up in the AI space. So Curtis, we'll have you kick us off with this question. How are fathers and men showing up in education?
Well, it's interesting. I had a conversation yesterday with some folks about where we are with AI and whether AI is really promoting this sense of critical thinking around young people. And someone mentioned, well, with AI and our young people, they're going to run circles around us, the access to this platform and to the technology that our generation didn't have. And I challenged that. And I said, in order to run circles around someone, you have to move. You have to run. You have to get off your phone. You have to not necessarily wait until the platform sends you prompts, or the tools that we use around social media send us the reels and the things that are curated specifically for us. And so how fathers are showing up and how fathers should show up more is really challenging our young people to not just take what they're receiving at face value, but to be critical of what's being put in front of them, whether it be through social media or through a Claude search or ChatGPT or whatever that is. That platform is there, you're going to use it, you can't necessarily get around it, but also how we show up to show them that, be long before you go to that tool to ask it a question, what introspect and what work are you doing personally around what you're looking for? Are you challenging yourself to research and to read things that challenge your own perspective and that aren't just affirmation and sort of creating this confirmation bias? And so for me, it's about how we show up to challenge our young people to use the technology thoughtfully, but also understand that, you can't just sit still in order to be successful. You have to move, and be one that's present in the world wherever you are. And in some cases, put the phone down.
I like that. Put the phone down. Mohan, let's hear from you.
Yeah, I mean, that feels like a quintessential dad thing, right? Is to issue that challenge, to want to spark movement. So I really feel like what Curtis is talking about. I think it's wild to me that I think at least once a week I'm in some sort of a space with other leaders where we're quite literally thinking about what is the point of humanity? What is the point of education? What is the point of community? And I think it's crazy that like AI in many ways has been this catalyst for us to have these conversations, for us to reflect on why are we doing this whole K-12 education thing, for instance? What is the point? And I've been in education long enough to see all the systems change coalitions that have come and gone, the concepts, the talk of North Star goals, which don't really get anywhere close to leaving the atmosphere, let alone getting into space. And so I think to be in this mode now where we're thinking about what do, it's crazy to say human skills, what do human skills look like, human characteristics look like? I think it's an incredible space for dads to lean in and to be able to share that authentic perspective. When you think about the many hats that dads wear, right? From being the soccer coach, to being a C-suite executive, to being an entrepreneur, to being a stay-at-home dad, these are incredible skills that dads have real insight into what is needed to be a flourishing human being today. And I think there's an opportunity to then translate that knowledge and that experience into the way that we design schools, into the educational experience that we want our kids to be able to go through, and to not just sit back and just hope that things will play out the right way, because that it's not going to work out. So yeah, this is very much an on-road, a runway, I think, for dads to be able to lead in.
Awesome. Kirby.
Yeah, gentlemen. Yeah. So, Mohan, funny enough, I was my son's soccer coach this past year, and I don't know anything about soccer. So thank God for AI, so I can at least get the rules down and the basics and so forth. So I can at least competently coach him and his team. Thank goodness, because a bunch of 6-year-olds I was trying to corral and was pretty hard in the first place. But from an AI perspective, yeah, I think it's all about responsibility in using the goodness of it, right? The proliferation of it in a way to help think of new ideas for creativity purposes and critical thinking, not just for being a good parent or co-parenting and so forth, but the opportunities of sports, critical thinking, education in that regard. My son, my boys are younger, they're 6 and 7, but also how to learn about AI myself and how to, when they're ready for it, teach them responsibly and ethically and so forth, the good things about it and how they could potentially use it for their careers and how they can change the world in their own way is the way I look about it. And it's not going anywhere. It's only going to get bigger and faster, as we know. And there's a bunch of other dads on this panel that are much more experts in AI than I am, but I'm a practitioner. So I think it's, responsibly, ethically, and using it to for the better of humanity and teaching our sons and our daughters at this time. And then from an education perspective is making sure, obviously special education is near and dear to my heart, but also making it more just organically and natural for the father to be part of the process with the IEPs, the education system, and so forth. It always, I should say always, a lot of it, and Brett, you could talk about this and so forth, and Curtis, it defaults a lot to the mom. And now it's time to start opening and channeling that and changing the narrative where it's both parents are involved and getting it very organically and naturally to invite both parents versus just one parent. And we're in a very support school district. But at first, everything was very much dedicated to my wife, Chelsea, and for good reason. I get it. For generations, the mom was the player, right? But now it's changing. So how can we change that in a man perspective and a father perspective on including both parents, irrespective of they're in their home or not, but make sure that they have a seat at the table. So
the READ Act. Make sure you call your senators about the READ Act. Now, Brett Canal, I want both of you guys to come on. Actually, we're in the conversation around AI. I'm seeing lots of comments from people. I really want to hone in on some cool things that are happening around AI where dads are involved. I know you guys are in that space, and I serve on a lot of advisory committees for AI nationally. And the number one question is, how do we get more dads connected? It's a misconception that moms are the only parents that advocate for kids. And so, as this panel is displaying this evening, dads are actually in all of the spaces showing up. And so I wanted to give you guys, they're still timing me, so I'm going to give you guys a couple of minutes to talk about how men and fathers are showing up in the AI space.
Absolutely. All right, Kunal, I'll take it away, and I'll let you bring us home. So I think the first thing I started to use AI for was, again, I'm going to give everybody a moment that I'm sure as educators or fathers you've had. First is this. When I was a principal, I didn't have AI, but if someone had a concern or they just said something to me that I wanted to track, I would say, before someone else comes up to me, let me just put this in my phone as a note. And I would. Now with AI, I do the same thing. I'll talk into my phone directly in front of the person to show them, like, this is now being stored and I'm going to get back to you on that. But what's even more amazing is with my son. So as he was going through all of these transitions, we're speaking to all these different coaches, teachers, counselors, 504s, IEPs, neurologists. I couldn't keep track of it. And I'm someone with a background in education. And so was my wife. So I started to build tools where I could use those. Now that's for me, but I'm like, well, how is this helping my son? So what I started to do is, at the time, use ChatGPT, and now I've used other tools. I made a GPT that's called How to Help My Son. And I would teach him that before he got dysregulated, we'd use it. And I'd say, so watch. Right now, if you're having a hard time with this, I'm just going to talk to my phone, and I'm only going to take this out because this has the brains of everyone that loves you, and it knows how to help you better than I do in this moment, because I can't remember all these things these experts are telling me. So check it out. And I would show him, and it would be like, well, if this is what's happening, why don't you try these things? And we give him options because that's what we were told. And all these different sensory inputs, different ways he could relieve, stress or just meet the needs of his body in those moments. Now, I could never have remembered all that. And at those moments where he's getting dysregulated, if I'm also dysregulated, I'm not my best me. So I started showing him like this only comes out because this is people that love you and they're trained to help you. That's one example of how I use it, because then it gave me like so much more peace and serenity. I had a safety blanket that I could bring out that he understood why. I would take out my phone. If it's nighttime and he couldn't go to sleep, I'd say, do not look at this. I'm turning it over. I'd keep it away from him so he couldn't see the light. And I'd say, let's ask it. Let's ask the people that love you. So he always felt supported even when I wasn't able to support him. So for me, that was the important thing. How do I get experts on the spot? And I've shown that to educators. If you're a teacher, imagine making those safely with, PII and ethics involved. Now imagine you did that for each one of your students and you showed them that and you build that relationship. So I show a lot of dads things like that, where like, you're not an expert and you can't hold it all together and you shouldn't know how to do everything in every moment. But thank goodness we have these tools that if we use them effectively, it makes us more present and we use in case of emergency. To me, that has relieved so much anxiety in my life as a parent. The other thing that's been truly helpful that I've shared with a lot of parents is any task that removes you from the moment, I call them the meaningful but menial tasks. So we heard people say, so much the cognitive load has been on mothers, unfortunately. So a good example is we way over calendar our families. I don't know how we survive without a shared calendar. But for example, we got our new school calendar for the upcoming school year. I took a picture of it. I put it into an AI tool. I connected it to my calendar. Every single holiday, every day off, every half day, every parent conference is already in our calendar. That took me seconds. That used to take us who knows how long. And it would have fallen on my wife in the past. And she would have wanted to own that, but it comes at the expense of something else where we're not present for our children. And so anything like that, the second I think, if I can get this calendar in here, one, it means I should be able to build around that and be present for those moments. But more importantly, like, it's not just I'm present. And that to me has been the game changer. So anytime I'm talking to anyone, I'm usually thinking, how can I be present now? And what do I need to take from this and store somewhere later so I can recall it in service of my children, in service of my community or family? That's really what me and Kunal have been really discussing and having these really heartfelt conversations with parents everywhere. How do you put the phone down? And the last most important thing I want to share before I turn it over to Kunal is I'm a huge proponent of recording with consent. Anytime I'm in my son's appointments, anytime I'm talking to someone that can help me be a better parent, educator, member of my community, I always say, this sounds like really great wisdom. Are you okay if I collect it with your consent? And then I'm present because I'm not trying to remember those key things that in the past would have like taken me out of the conversation. And I keep showing that to my friends who are dads, do this more. And even when I pro bono volunteer at schools to help college students and help with like college talks, especially when parents are first generation and they haven't gone to college in this country, the first thing I do is I'll ask the questions and mediate or moderate it. But I tell them, we're not going to look at a screen until we've had some real authentic college talk. Now we have the recording. It'll tell you what mom wants, what dad wants, what the son or daughter wants. How do we work together? What are the biggest questions we need to figure out? But like, we're not looking at screens. We're making eye contact. That to me is what's so crucial. AI is a great way to utilize it before and after conversations. If you can use it to capture it, be present. And again, I do everything ethically with consent and safely, but that's really to me how I stay in the moment now. That's just changed everything for me. And that's what students have told me they want more. We do this game called Pass the Mic. I've had it from students to superintendents. And I say, what's something you're struggling with right now in your role in the school? And so many students said they want help getting off of their devices. And afterwards, superintendents, teachers said, I said, what surprised you about today? And the students said, well, we didn't know they were trying to get off their phones and devices. And then it was just a really great moment of everyone coming together and realizing we all want the same thing.
The READ Act. Make sure you call your senators. Brett, first of all, I'm telling you, the moms that are connected to the conversation are like, yes, this is awesome. We need more strategies. We need more testimonies. I'm loving this. I also like that people are saying balance. If you're looking at StreamYard comments or YouTube, people love balance that you just presented. So, Kunal, I have to ask you this. Still connected to the question, but it's going in a little bit of a different direction. If you did not peep what Britt said around being able to help with scheduling with his wife happy wife, happy life. So, you know, dads are throwing out some tips. You know, wives, if you're not having that support at home, you see, we're helping in multiple ways here. Now, here's the question we have for you. Does AI make it harder for relationship building with kids for those who may not have strategies or some of the techniques that Brett mentioned? So from the child perspective, do you see AI maybe replacing a lot of the hands-on engagement for those who may not have balance or strategies?
You know, I would say no, quite the opposite, actually. I think, and I'll give you an example. When my kid started to come home, you know, from daycare or school or now kindergarten, about to be first grade, he, you know, the perennial question of, hey, how was your day? And then the answer is always fine. Okay, how was fine? No, what, right? And you just don't get anywhere, or you can, but I guess I'm just not as skilled as some folks to get anywhere. But rather than me keep trying to reinvent that, what I did was I created a little local AI tool that lives on my own computer, so this stuff doesn't go anywhere in the world. And I said, you know, rather than me ask you what is happening for the day or whatever, let me actually just do something simple where I just narrate my day. So I will say, hey, I woke up and I was on a meeting with these people, and then I went on a run and I went to the gym, and then I went out and did this, and then I was on this wonderful session here with NPU, and I'll just narrate my day. I'll record it, it'll transcribe it, and then I have him narrate his day. So he'll be like, yeah, I was playing with my buddy Connor. We saw a caterpillar on the ground. We dug up, you know, some dirt and, you know, whatever. And he'll describe his day. And so then I prompt the AI to with basically, I say, okay, these are transcripts of me and my son. We both lived separate lives today physically, but what's something in common that we did that positively affected the world? And now AI takes those two transcripts and it combines them, and then it comes up with something that a common way in which we affected the world positively, even though we were living physically separate lives. And so then there's something to talk about there. And so then it comes up with something, and then we don't just read it and be like, oh, cool. We talk about, well, oh, look, how cool is that you were doing this, and none of that looked, you know, similar on the surface, but we did something positive. And then I take it one step further and I say, now find some ancient tradition, indigenous or otherwise, that what we did positively to the world, where that's reflected in some indigenous tradition, some storytelling tradition, something that's ancient, because I don't want my child to just see that we were connected in this moment, but to also see that what we were doing together is connected to thousands and thousands of years of humanity. And now we have something new to discuss, where we get to talk about not just what we did today, but how what we did today is reflective of humanity for thousands of years. And the connection that builds is so much deeper than anything I could have done on my own. There's no way that I could have been able to create something like that on my own. And just the other day, I was walking across the street with my son, and he said, hey, Boppy, you know, the world is changing so fast right now. And I was like, dude, you're 6. Like, what does that even mean? Like, what does it mean the world is changing so fast? And then he said, you know, the AI is changing so fast. And he's noticed it because the stories are getting more intelligent. We do dream journals where I have 2.5 years of his dreams now, where he speaks out his dreams, and then we create a little image of his dreams. And he's seen the images get so much better. And now he has this incredible understanding of this world that he lives in right now through a lens that he can understand. And if that hasn't connected us more deeply, then there's nothing I could have done that could have connected us to this moment right now if I hadn't had those tools. And so I would say, yes, if you're using ChatGPT only, then yes, maybe the screen time question becomes a problem. But if you actually embed your humanity into how these AI tools are used, I can't see anything other than more connection, not less.
Listen, we didn't practice this at all. So the sound bites that you're hearing are solid and they are gold. Balance is key, and also remembering that AI is a tool. I've said this in several conferences that I've attended. Right now, the focus is not for AI to replace Miss Betty at the front office of the school. We know that we need Miss Betty at the front office to do the things humanity-wise that are needed for kids. Now, administrative-wise, AI is doing some phenomenal things, and I know that our special guests have really talked about what's happening and how people can connect. And so I'm glad that we've heard these experiences. Now, again, the READ Act, make sure you call your senators. And that reminds us, because I want to go in this direction, looking at time, but also looking at a couple of areas I know are important, and stakeholders want to hear from you all on this. So, gentlemen, just follow me here, as well as our team in the background. A major shout out for everybody volunteering to help with tech, because it's important. How can dads keep kids safe online? Each one of you are fathers, and I want you to give us one thing, one strategy that you are using with your kids to help keep them safe online. And Kunal, we'll start with you and go in the reverse order.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, what an insanely important question, right? Like we are in a world right now where digital images, digital voices, all of these things can be manipulated so casually. And while my son is still sort of young enough to where I can more control what he's seeing, parents and fathers of kids who are older, who are sort of see an uncensored and unvarnished version of this, we have spent so much of our time, I think, and this is something that I feel like AI is allowing us to step away from. We've spent so much of our time optimizing our digital space that I think many of our young folks confuse the digital world with the real world. And there's studies now, plenty of them, that show that a lot of young folks feel more themselves in the digital space than they do in real life. Which to me, I'm wondering, what does that even mean? Because the digital world isn't a world. It's just bits and bytes on servers. There's nothing human about any of that. And so when we ask students and kids and young folks to step away from technology and do to me, I'm sure they're asking, and do what? Like, what is this other world? And I did a class with about 14 high school kids who all felt like they were very technologically sound and they were in their community and all of that. And to a person, not a single student felt like the actual physical human infrastructure of the world was theirs. It was the old people world, and their world was the TikTok world. And the old people will figure out, garbage disposal and, how we deal with, policy and all of that. They are worried about what happens in the digital world. And so how to keep kids safe, to me, first off, is to make so clear that the digital space is not real. And it is a space that can be manipulated and is manipulated and has been manipulated over the last 10, 15 years to such an extent that I would push to call some of the algorithmic sort of optimization things that happen online pure poison. And to be able to appreciate that, and for me, of course, my kid's young enough to where I can sort of put that in. I think it's really important that we really use this AI moment to elevate, again, our organic human selves, and to remind them, maybe not remind them, maybe help them learn for the first time that digital footprint, that digital space is not actually real and can be and is going to be completely manipulated around them. So that's my answer to that.
I love that. Brett, let's hear from you.
Yeah. The thing I do most is when I work with schools and communities, I ask them this question. I play a game called Alexa versus Alexa versus Alexa. Basically, kid come home from school, they have all their emotions. If they are sad or lonely, do they talk to Alexa, their parent, Alexa, their sibling, or Alexa, the device? And I play this game over and over again with schools, and I say, and they're like, oh, they should talk to this one or that one. And it's very common sense. Even kids get it. And yet we're not training kids to do that. So I often will tell people, what age should we have kids learn like the I do, we do, you do model for Alexa? And they're like, 6th grade. But in that same sentence, they'll tell me their 4-year-old's already using it. So getting parents and educators to realize we are acknowledging that we're letting kids use it, right? Kids don't buy the devices. Kids aren't the ones who, sign up and get Alexa in their house. And yet we don't teach them the same skills we would teach them about other digital literacy or other life skills. So I often tell people, I don't care anymore about the age. My dad's 75. He shouldn't be on Alexa. My daughter's 5. I've trained her more than him. I want her to be able to use it once I teach her those skills. So to me, it's start with, what are we worried about? How do we teach them to use it safely? And then we all agree, if they can do this on their own, we should empower them. But if they can't do it, age is irrelevant. And, it doesn't matter to me what that arbitrary age is. When I go into districts, I say, you choose what grade we're teaching it, but let's acknowledge we have to teach it at some point. We can't keep saying kids should learn this on their own or kids are making bad choices. We are the gatekeepers to that technology in many cases, and we're not doing anything about it. So that to me is so imperative that we just focus on the common sense. This is what we see in front of us. How are we going to address it? And let's work together to figure that out.
I love that. Kirby.
Yeah, great answers, Kanal and Brett. Simply for us, with a 6-year-old typical developing son, I try to educate him and speak to him every time he wants to use his device. He loves YouTube, and there's a lot of good educational stuff on there quickly, but also you press 1 or 2 buttons and you're going to get into a whole different stratosphere within about 30 seconds, right? So every single time he wants to use it, I talk to him, hey, only good videos, only good content. What do you want to watch? What is this about? Let me see it first. And then I step away and empower him, but I come back in a couple minutes to make sure it's the same video, whatever. And we also try to very much limit the screen time as well to, 15 minutes at a time, if you will, wherever it might be, to make sure that is, the brainwashing or the manipulation is not happening. And he understands that, hey, this is, truth, this is church and state, right? This is not real life and so forth. So, because he has found some really good educational stuff that's actually good for his brain, engineering things that are very educational stuff that I was exposed to when I was a kid, or we weren't exposed to as kids. So I think there is some benefit of it, but there has to be a lot of guardrails around it. And it has to be constant conversations and in not just the parental controls, they could be circumvented within a second, but even by a 6-year-old, right? So the education, and then Canal, to your point, I want to build the AI tool, right, to help us out there. So you're using it already for human dignity. Let's use it out for parental controls and so forth. So that's my wrap.
That's right up our alley. Parental controls and consent. Mohan, Curtis, we're going to hear from you guys on this as well.
Yeah, I mean, very much second, Kirby, what you just shared there. Appreciate that application around YouTube that resonates. It's kind of surreal for me where I live now in Northern Virginia, because I go in one direction, I have Data Center Alley in Loudoun County. I go in the other direction, I have DC. And so I'm surrounded on a day-to-day basis with people who work in AI, who work in tech, work for the government, work for different agencies. And what's really amazing to me is this conversation we're having right now about keeping our kids safe is the same conversation that many adults are having about keeping ourselves safe, and how to be able to sort through the misinformation, the manipulation that's out there, the late stage capitalism that's tied to so much of this. And I think with that, as so my county, for instance, is currently working through, what is the AI policy for all the groups that are involved, right? For parents, what does the policy look like? What does their literacy look like? What does it look like for the teachers? What does it look like for the kids? And I think for dads, and what that role can look like, it's, hey, if during the day you're navigating these questions, you don't need to shut that down when you come back home. I'd say continue that conversation with your kids, with your partners, with your school district, with your principals, because many people are trying to figure it out, and dads in many ways are on the front lines of what's actually being developed, literally what is being developed on a day-to-day basis. And again, they're raising some of the same questions, some of the same flags. They're seeing some of the same opportunities too, right? So it's not all fear and deficit oriented. There is some that's very asset oriented too. But I think dads have a real authenticity that needs to come into the conversations when it comes to safety involving the many different groups who are at the table now. or who should be at the table.
The READ Act. Do not forget to contact your senators, the Senate Education Committee. Curtis, we want to hear, one thing that you're doing to help keep your kids safe online, but we also want to connect what policies should we be looking at to help ensure that dads, young dads in particular, father figures can be engaged in their child's education. So give us your strategy that you're using with your kids to help keep them safe online, and also maybe highlight some policies that you think, or a policy that you think would help get more dads connected to their child's academic journey, or maybe even become a teacher.
Well, I'm old school, and so my response to this is not a technology response. It's one, build connections with your children so they feel comfortable and share with you what's happening when you're not watching. That trust happens over a long period of time, for them to understand that whether you call it monitoring or whatever you want to call it, that is done with a purpose, that is done with love, that is done with mutual respect for one another, but also for protection. That's what we're here for. People ask, you think back about the one thing we think about our own fathers and our father figures is that sense of protection. And so, to come up with a way to, to use another piece of technology to monitor this technology and totally divorce ourselves from the human connection and responsibility that we have through our children is one that I don't necessarily support. And so, one is about my children. We speak all the time. How was your day? They know that they can tell me something that is confidential, that is in a safe space, that I can trust them. But there's also, hey, guess what? I monitor my son's social media, and he's 18 years old. And my wife monitors my daughter's social media, and she's 16 years old. And so these are things that, we know what their DMs look like. We know who's hopping in, we know who's not. And so we have to have that trust to understand that this is not, these are not rights. You have a right to social media. It's not in my house. And so, especially you're on my phone plan, right? There's no right to that. That's a privilege. And so to also understand that there is protection that comes from it. There's trust that we're building over time, but that, it's not a social, it's not a technological response to a human issue. It's a human response, which is trust and confidentiality amongst one another. And when it comes to fathers, I was on the school board for 10 years, and we've tried our best to increase the number of fathers who engage in our schools. And some of us about when, sometimes it's when is a PTA meeting? When is back to school night? What time are you're having these conferences that make it more amenable for men to show up and to be there? How are you welcoming men into the school building, into associations, and creating community for them? In some cases, it's about how you open up pathways for men who may have been previously incarcerated to engage more in their children's lives legally, and really, reduce some of the barriers, both in policy and then, just sort of habits that don't welcome fathers into the school building. And so I love what National Parents Union is doing. Again, I mentioned in my introduction of how you bring fathers into school to be crossing guards, bus monitors, maybe come to read to the schools on a certain times of the month, because I think that's a gateway into introducing them to the power and importance of education, but reminding them about the men in their lives who are so impactful, and then to show them what the impact of male educators can be on a regular basis, and not just on the day they come in. And so some of it's policy, some of it's just human leadership in the building, being very deliberate and determined to ensure that men are in the lives of our children, because the data shows the impact on student achievement is so significant. The data is there, but there's a human response to technological advances that I think sometimes we often forget if we aren't very clear about doing the work. And it requires a lot of work, not over time. I mean, not instantly, but over a period of time.
Listen, everyone, we've had a very amazing conversation on this evening. People are really excited to hear from the dads, and I'm thankful to Tafshir Cosby, our Senior Director of Organizing and Partnerships. She, mentioned us doing a live forum for our fathers. She was so impressed with our long-standing partners, like our good brother Sam in New York, who is an OG and has an amazing family. He's an advocate in education. He's also on our board. Sharif El-Mekki and so many of our other partners who are doing phenomenal work. Tafshir said, Jason, you should organize a fathers and families forum. So I'm glad that you all answered the call. We had so many other amazing leaders in the Male Fatherhood Coalition of NPU. Jamal Black, who has a parent voice blog out now on the NPU parent voice blog. We have Kenneth Reddick with the Brothers Brunch Foundation, who is lifting the mantle of mental health, which is a major conversation. I want to make sure that people can get connected to your organizations. If you have not already dropped your information inside of the comment area, we will be sharing this information on social media to connect with people. We had so many questions that people submitted and things that we wanted to cover this evening, but I do feel like one thing that I know everyone really wants to, hear, and people are definitely going to look for this in the recording. We're going to close out on this question. What support do fathers need most today? And that was something that people want to hear from you all on. What are things that fathers need to really help us engage more dads and fathers in and out of schools, in communities, in policy spaces, and also in spaces centering the mental health and well-being of our children. So we'll start with Kunal and go in that order of hearing from everyone on what support do fathers need most today.
Yeah, thank you. I think, one thing that a lot of research shows, and I think we can see it in the research, we can also feel it anecdotally as fathers and previously as boys and young men. Boys and men, we do tend to be or socialized to be, however we want to put it, team pack animals in a way. And in that sense, what fathers to me need more than anything are models of what it might look like to do fatherhood a little different. We have an online world right now where so much of the male version of, or whatever version of masculinity is supposed to be, manosphere stuff, all of that stuff is really pushing, I think, fathers into a corner where we have to decide whether I'm going to be on a team or I'm going to do what feels right in my heart and what feels right in my spirit. And I think the more that we allow fathers to see examples and lead in examples of compassionate, empathetic, human-centered, love-filled, vulnerable human beings, that allows other fathers to feel like they've got a team to join. And I'll shout out my colleague in life, Brett here, who's on this panel as well. We're starting a group called Present Papas for that exact reason. It's a continuation of my own AI parentology work, but but my AI parentology work was sort of parent agnostic, and I think really over the last 3 years, really leaning into this understanding of the unique need that fathers have in this moment of insane change and insanely rapid change, and that continues to draw a lot of men into more and more toxic versions of what it might mean, sometimes not because they believe it, but because that feels like the team they should join. And so I think what fathers need more than anything right now is a version of fatherhood that looks more compassionate, more love-filled, more vulnerable. And I hope that, and this panel right here, what an incredible, that's like, I'm so privileged to be a part of this and to be able to speak with you all. So that be it. I think we need models.
Yeah. To keep it short and sweet, what Kunal just said, I deeply believe when I teach parents and educators about AI, I'm so clear that take this mental model, take this one example, and I always think this is not exactly what you might need, but what's the transferable skill or the transferable emotion that you can take from this one example I give. So as Kunal said, when we are taking this present Papa's community, I want to learn one thing. So just an example, when I was at the Knicks parade last week with my son, a piece of ticker tape came down and an older gentleman took it, handed it to my son and said, hold on to this forever. You're never going to forget it. And for the rest of the evening or the rest of the parade, my son, anytime he found one, he put them in his pockets. We got one for every family member. And this father had his 2 older daughters there, and he was making dad jokes and they were being corny, but they were like the sweetest 2 young women who were like taking care of my son when they're sitting on top of a car. And like, that to me was, I learned so much from this one moment of this dad showing me how he interacted with his older children and how he made a connection with my son. And all we need are people like that to teach us that one transferable skill. And imagine if you had a community filled with those and you can pick and choose the right empathetic moments and strategies. That's what we all need. And if you start to stack those skills and habits, we're going to have a really great community of present papas out there. So really excited to build something together with amazing fathers and community members like what's on this panel. So also equally privileged. Thank you.
Yeah, Jason, Christine, team, thank you again for having me on here. Awesome conversation and some great fathers and dads on this in this panel. And really just building on what Kunal and Brett said. As the proliferation of AI gets wilder and faster and so forth, I think there's going to be a humongous need for communities. I think especially, for dads, I think it's gonna be really critical to learn from each other, exchange tribal knowledge and so forth. And there's an opportunity, especially I think in the neurodivergent, community we're in, if you will, for Got Fortitude, is that there's an opportunity, and I think we'll see it soon, where there'll be a narrative change around masculinity. Men, boys, dads were raised directly or indirectly around being stoic, being tough. You don't want to look weak in front of your boys. Social media, society pressures, whatever that is, right? But hey, look, we all have heart, minds, and souls. We all have worries, issues, challenges, and so forth. So let's be vulnerable, as Kunal and Brett said. Let's open up. Let's reach across the aisle. Let's actually form brotherhoods and brotherships and help each other out and support each other. So I think community is going to be big, even bigger as technology gets wilder and the world. We'll see what happens with the world, but have the genuine connection and authentic connection is going to be really big, and learn from each other and be the best dads we can, because there's nothing better we can do to have a personal transformation for our families than actually transform yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to follow that. First, I'll note, in case folks aren't following the chat, just a shout out to Jason for the Dr. King Award. Very much deserved. So salutations to you, brother. Yeah, I mean, following up there, I mentioned some of the events that we've done with Dads for All, right? And we want to be able to be engaged in terms of service and volunteerism. Not every event we do is service, though. Oftentimes, like it's just having fun. It's building community. It's having just having a good time, sharing jokes, sharing laughs, sharing drinks, whatever it is. I can't tell you how many times dads have come to this space and said, I didn't know I needed this, but I needed this. Because like, as amazing as those events have been, oftentimes it's really hard to get dads to show up. Like there's been this deconditioning that so many of us have experienced when it comes to socializing for anything that's not work or like our kids, baseball game. But like, I think that support is it's that encouragement. Like, sometimes it's guy to guy, or sometimes it's somebody else in your life of like, yeah, like if this is something that you're into, that you enjoy, like go out and have some fun. And like, I think that entry point is always, we're gonna do like a men's work group. If that's your jam, then more power to you. Sometimes it's like, all right, some of the guys are having a poker night, they're going out to have some drinks, they're going out to watch the World Cup match, whatever it is. Just go and have some fun. Get back into that joy that you deserve. Not just anchored to like all these other aspects of your life, but for yourself. So we'd just love to see that support offered to more dads.
Thank you so much. And I'll say what fathers need is what educators need, and what I'm trying to create at the Male Educator Network, which is firstly community, to be able to connect with men like us, to find out that we're not alone, that there are men like us. And brothers have talked about already, whether it be a community of one or a community like National Parents Union is creating. We also need that information, opportunities that show us when are opportunities for us to come into the school, what time, where and what we should do when we show up. Oftentimes men will tell you, I didn't know about that. Oh, there was opportunity to do that. I didn't know. How do we communicate with them to show them their opportunities? The other thing is also mentorship. You said before, there's, I think all men, I don't care if you're 4 or 40, look up to other men in a lot of ways as models, as someone has said earlier. It's incredibly important. But lastly, and maybe the most important, sometimes hear that what they're doing is okay and that they're moving in the right direction. It's that affirmation that's oftentimes we don't get. When I thought of the Fatherhood Forum years ago, we would do a Father's Award ceremony every year. And men would say, fathers, particularly educators, would say, Curtis, I don't do it for the thank yous, but damn it feels good to be recognized because I'm out here, I'm doing the work, I'm getting up early, I'm staying late, and it's a thankless job. And I'm not getting appreciated, but I can't say it. I don't know how to tell someone I feel underappreciated. And so if you know a father out there, just tell them, hey, man, you're doing a good job. I'm proud of you. I saw what you're doing. I saw what you did. And so a lot of the affirmation, let us know we're moving in the right direction, is all we need.
All right, everyone. We have heard from our panelists who, again, join me in thanking this amazing panel this evening. Super honored to moderate this conversation and help uplift some of the amazing work that our dads are doing, our partners are doing. We want to make sure that you get connected. Now, we did not talk about everything, but we talked about enough to ensure that the perception of dads and how dads are engaged maybe change for some viewers who can go back and take these stories and these resources to their schools, their communities, and their networks. We know it's the summertime, so we want to give you a little bit of time back this evening with your families. Do not forget, if you did not remember anything that I said, even in the time that I was muted, the READ Act. Make sure you call your senators. It's vitally important. This conversation was beautiful, and it was very meaningful to all who have subscribed to join the conversation on this evening. Make sure that you get connected to the National Parents Union. Again, we thank you for being on the conversation this evening, and we hope that you will stay tuned to all of the things that we have upcoming for the National Parents Union. And let me just say that AI is a major area of work and focus for us, but also economic stability, health, safety, and yes, if you're a longtime member of NPU education. So again, I have to close out by saying the READ Act. Make sure that you get connected, and thank you guys for being a part of this conversation on this evening. We will see you at the next live stream event. Subscribe to the NPU YouTube channel. Thank you.